DMZ is making some brutal changes with Season 2, and there's one change in particular that players are so upset about that it could potentially ruin DMZ for them, and we'll jump right into the specifics. But if you missed the video yesterday, a massive Season 2 blog post dropped detailing the changes coming. If you haven't seen that video, then you can click the interactive eye on the top right of this video. But there's one particular change which wasn't made very clear at all, and this was the fact that with new missions coming to Season 2, this also includes a refresh of your current faction mission progress and an inventory reset, meaning all your contraband and all your keys will be wiped. Now, having your contraband and your keys reset is definitely going to hurt, but it's not the biggest deal in the world, because at this point, if you've been playing since the beginning, most of us will have at least 2 insured weapon slots and probably even a third for completing tier 5. It is certainly going to sting for a lot of us that have hoarded specific keys for later missions or key cards for building 21, and we're going to lose all of those. But the blog's wording of what's happening with the faction mission progress is that it says it's including a refresh of the current mission progress, which at first to me sounded like we will still stay on the current tier of faction that we are. It's just all the mission progress for that tier will be reset, but apparently that is not the case. According to Modern Warzone, who's been given specific confirmation on this by Activision themselves, is that all of your faction mission progress will be completely wiped, regardless if you've got to tier 5, if you're still on tier 3, tier 4, you will all have your factions reset to tier 1. This will also mean that your insured weapon slots in DMZ will also be wiped and reset when Season 2 goes live. The issue with the blog post is it doesn't read at all like that is what's going to happen, but apparently he's had it reconfirmed that all progress is resetting. And in my own personal opinion, I don't feel like this is the best way to go about it. I'm going to suggest some alternative implementations they can do where it doesn't affect those that have grinded all the way to tier 5 right now, but also doesn't affect those newer players. But clearly this is an issue for a lot of players, and I've seen nothing but outcry on Twitter over this decision. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts about this decision in the comment section below. Those of you that have read the blog, you've watched the videos to know about what's going on with Season 2, was that specific part of DMZ changing clear to you? Because I did not find it clear when this was announced yesterday. And they mentioned that they are going to be detailing all the need to know intel for DMZ ahead of Season 2 in an upcoming blog, but I feel like that blog needs to come out really soon because they need to explain the thought process onto why resetting every single player's DMZ progress is a good idea. If we compare DMZ to Escape from Tarkov, which is clearly the inspiration for DMZ, that also has regular wipes where everyone's player inventories are completely reset, and I feel that's a great thing. But when we look at DMZ, the player inventory is not really that important. You can jump into a DMZ game with your own custom loadout, so whatever weapon you want, whatever attachments you want, and you can use that every 4 hours. That is a powerful weapon and will always be the best weapon to use in DMZ because it's your own created custom weapon. Whilst in Tarkov, that does not exist and you have to use whatever you can loot and find. In DMZ, if you lose your insured weapon, it's not really that big a deal. You just have to wait 4 hours to use it again, or reduce that cooldown time by using some pretty mediocre guns that the AI drop in order to get your main gun back. The main point is, outside of exclusive weapon blueprints and exclusive weapons like the grenade launcher, the stash isn't important at all. And I guess that's the problem that they need to work on in order for it to be similar to the stakes with Tarkov, where the stash you've collected between games is really important. For myself and many of you guys who are probably at tier 4 or tier 5 by now in DMZ, you've taken your time to get there, and the idea of all of that progress being reset back to tier 1, we have to do those basic beginning missions all over again, just seems extremely tedious and pointless. Players have to go through all of that again. They're not going to be interested in doing that. And I just think it's such a bizarre thing to do, but I'm looking at it from the head of a developer, and I can understand that if they're making changes to some of the current missions where they're not going to be as tedious with, say, 40 gas masks and a dead drop, they might reduce that number to 10. Wiping every player's progress puts them on a clean slate where there are no glitches or any sort of things that might bug out. If a player was in the process of doing a mission that required 40 items and now it's down to 10, If they've done 20 out of 40 and suddenly they're now 10, that is obviously going to bug and confuse the game. And there's probably a lot of missions that they're going to be changing to the point where those are going to be common bugs, unless they reset every person's mission progress so that that does not happen. And at the same time, it's almost like they're completely overhauling how the mission system is going to work with Season 2, because we're going to have Building 21 specific missions and also specific missions to the new third map coming. Rather than there be different factions for those maps, they're going to be combining missions for all 3 maps into the 3 factions we have. And as frustrating and annoying as it is having everything reset, we also got to think about the long-term DMZ longevity. This is what's going to keep the game feeling fresh by having us go in and starting again with brand new missions. This mode is going to be around for 2 years, because this game's also going to be around for 2 years. And if tiers were not reset, those that have already completed absolutely everything and just had the new missions to do might complete them a lot quicker than expected, and then the game will have no real replay value until the end of that season. And another thing about DMZ, which I've seen a lot of people mention on Twitter and remind most people, is that the mode is in beta right now. If it's still going to be in beta when Season 2 drops, I don't really know. But it sort of kind of makes sense that if something's in a beta, the stuff that you do during that beta phase won't save when it comes to the full-fledged launch of the game or the mode in this case. And I don't disagree with the logic behind that, but if you look at a mode like Plunder in the original Warzone, when that first launched back in March 2020, Plunder was also a mode that was in beta. It had beta when you booted up into the game, and lo and behold, a few months later that disappeared and there wasn't really much difference to Plunder. But like I said at the start of the video, I have a much better idea how they can implement this, because the idea of just wiping everyone back to square one is going to anger a big part of the player base, where they're just not going to play the mode again, because what's the point in progressing if their faction mission progress is just going to be reset? And with the wording of a seasonal refresh, it sounds like they're going to do that every single season, which then makes you question, why are you even going to bother doing the missions in a season if the next season is just going to reset all that progress? My idea on how they can add these new missions in without resetting people's progress and finding the perfect middle ground is this. Now, you know how it currently works in the missions where you only need to do 5 out of the 6 missions in order to complete that tier and go up to the next one? Well, there's always one mission that's being left out that you don't need to complete to go up to the tiers. What they should do is add new missions in each tier. That's the Building 21 and the new maps missions, keep you on the tier that you're at. And if you want to progress to the next tier, say you're on tier 4 and you want to get to tier 5, in the mission menus, you're going to need to press the button that shows you your previous faction missions and go back to tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 you'd normally use to look at the missions you didn't complete. But then you'll find a whole bunch of new missions for Building 21 and the new map that you'll have to complete in order for you to advance to the next tier. So say I'm on tier 4 across the board and they add Season 2. In order for me to complete tier 4, I'm going to need to go back to tier 1, 2, and 3's missions, look at the ones I haven't completed, and see there is now a bunch of new ones. I need to go ahead and complete all of those in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then tier 4 in order for me to then get to tier 5. That way, they are not penalizing players that have been playing since the very beginning by making them do the most monotonous missions again, and instead letting new players have to complete those. Then they also have the new missions, which every player, regardless if they're new or old, has to complete to progress anyway. That way, players that have been playing since the very beginning, like myself, don't feel shafted that all of the progress and time we've spent doing these missions are completely wasted because they're going to be reset. Newer players don't feel like we have an advantage because we've not skipped the missions that they haven't done. We've done technically harder versions of them because they're going to make them easier. And because we don't have any keys or any contraband stash anymore, we're all now at a level playing field. All going to need to grind these new missions in the tier 1, 2, and 3, and 4, then get on to tier 5. I know there's quite a few people out there that have been on tier 5 for a very long time. They got the whole thing completed within 2 weeks of DMZ coming out. But for myself, who's been taking my time, as well as not having a lot of friends around that want to play DMZ all the time, it's been a long and slow grind for myself to get up to tier 5. So the fact that I've done all this work slowly over the course of the season, and then it's all all being wiped, I just don't like that. The only positives I can see from them wiping absolutely everything from all of our progress is that fundamentally it's going to make DMZ more accessible to players that haven't played it before, because we're all going to be on the same playing field again. But I feel if we all knew on day one of DMZ that our mission progress was going to be reset, keys and contraband was also going to be wiped at some point during the next season, I don't think people would have reacted as badly as they are now with this decision. I have no doubt that the developers are looking at the community's response to the blog post and the changes, and I'm hoping that if they see the amount of people that completely disagree with the idea of faction mission progress being reset back to like as if you've never played, they might listen to some of the suggestions that I might have made or you guys might have made on how they can better implement it so it doesn't upset so many current DMZ players. The only other positive thing, I guess, which puts more urgency on completing missions within that specific season is that these missions have specific rewards that you can't unlock any other way. You can't get them in Warzone 2, can't get them in multiplayer, and as it stands right now, you can't buy these outfits in the store. Down the line, there's nothing to say that they won't add some of the Season 1 mission rewards as store items, and if they do, I'll probably be a little bit sad because we grinded hard to get some of those rewards, and I feel like they should stay as legacy rewards, those that went the extra mile to complete all those missions within a season. But I also feel in the same breath for Season 2 and beyond, if the missions are going to keep resetting every season like it sounds like they are, they need to make these rewards absolutely god tier so that players are going to have no choice but to grind every single season to get them, because some of the rewards are absolutely awesome from these missions and then there's some which just feel pretty pointless. This was a constructive video trying to look at both sides to this really big controversial change in DMZ which no player was expecting. Judging from the way that they've communicated it and how Modern Warzone has shared most of this information, it sounds like they are not going to be changing the way that this is going to be implemented at all, but I still feel it's important we talk about it and let them know in the case that there can be some change happening. If above nothing gets changed, at the very least what Infinity Ward should do is that those that have unlocked the 3rd weapon slot should get some sort of reward, like a weapon blueprint or a really cool operator skin or something that just shows that you went the extra mile to get tier 5 on DMZ in Season 1. And if every season is going to end up with a full wipe where all progress is reset, there should still be something which long term you are working towards by completing every set of seasonal missions, because then at the very least there is some point at the end of the day to doing it all, as right now a lot of DMZ players feel really deflated at the idea of having to do all the missions again from the very beginning, going through all of those tutorial-like missions as well. For myself, who is on tier 5 now, with this news, it almost feels like there's no real point in me doing those missions, because even if I get the 3rd slot, I'm not going to be able to use it when Season 2 comes around, so what's the point? I don't know if this is something which we're all just reacting to as we're just sort of shocked, really, and in time this is going to be completely fine, which I think it is, but I just feel there needs to be far better communication on these changes being made so that we understand them from the get-go. The missions in DMZ are by far the best part of the mode and I absolutely love them, but I just can't help but feel a little deflated at all of my hard work basically being reset for nothing. I guess we won't really know exactly how this is going to play out until we get the next blog post explaining these changes in detail, which I will do and update you guys with a video. So if you are new and you want to stay up to date on everything DMZ, then please go ahead and subscribe. If you've made it all the way to the end, then I really appreciate it. And if you could do one big favor, is to leave a like rating on this video and to drop a comment with your feedback, because the more we get of those, the more chance that the developers will see this and listen to the overall feedback of the community that we have here on this channel. If you're still yet to see all the changes coming to Season 2 for DMZ, then you can find it in this video that's on your screen right now. Just give it a click and I'll be with you in just a moment.